Good evening, Wanderers. It's Endymion, the Wandering Hermit, back again. Just doing a short video today to talk about something which a lot of people seem to just have a look at either for fun or just out of genuine interest. It's this idea of 10 signs that you are, a magic person, like inherently magic or something like that. Now, I found this idea laughable for a long time. But the more that I've kind of studied, not magic necessarily, but other aspects of like biophysics and things like that, the more I've come to think that this idea actually has some merit, scientifically speaking. So I've done a little bit of done a little bit of reading, and I can't help but laugh at some of the, already established lists of signs that you're a hereditary witch, because some of the things that people cite as signs that you could be inherently magic are a bit strange, and I'll just run through some of the most common ones that I've seen. Okay, you don't fit into society or like to be a lone wolf. Okay, naturally intuitive, I can go along with that. Death and the afterlife is fascinating to you, I can kind of go along with that as well. You love to learn, well, who doesn't? You're attached to nature. Okay, we'll go into that. You prefer silver to gold. Now that one really makes me laugh. I can understand why they say that, but again, I'll go into that. You love to wear black. What a stereotype that is. Oh, that's hilarious. You collect things. Well, lots of people collect things. Animals are drawn to you. Yeah. But is the animal domestic or is it a wild animal? We'll go into that. You attract or are attracted to unusual people. Define unusual. Again, it's something to really look at. You have a magnetic personality. Well, to some extent, actually, yeah, that is an indicator. I'll go into that as well. You're always cold to touch. I think this is more in line with if you're descended from Fae. Something to do with the core body temperature being lower because they're ethereal beings, not fresh-blooded ones. We'll have a look at that, but I find that amusing. You have unusual sleep patterns. Well, if you don't have a job, then you sleep whenever you want. Cats have unusual sleep patterns because okay, anyway. You feel you don't belong in this world. I kind of link that to don't fit into society. Again, that's just, I find that silly. Had imaginary friends as a child. This I can actually go along with to an extent as well. Interested in magic from a young age. Well, a majority of kids are interested in the idea of magic. You hear white noise or tinnitus all the time. That I can go along with from personal experience. Talented healer, either physically or emotionally. Fair enough. Can feel electric currents or magnetics. Yes. And kids and animals seem to love you. Animals drawn to you. It's the same idea. I think from two different sources. That's why I've doubled them up. Right. So some of these I see as legit. Many of them I see as utterly ludicrous. Now, that's not just for the sake of being an arsehole. I won't go into it because, I'm not here to criticise. I'm here to offer my own alternatives from my own experience and research. So, first off, I know that this idea of being a hereditary witch, for example, or being of Fae blood, for example, is a point of contention within the magical community, and I understand that a lot of people see it just as ego gratification, and I actually completely understand that because for a long time I saw it that way myself. Because let's face it, if you're a hereditary witch or if you're of Fae blood, then a lot of people who are ego driven use that as justification to be a dick to other people and to put themselves on a pedestal and say, well, I'm pure blood or whatever, and therefore I have more right to do as I please or to criticise others, which of course no one should do. So I understand why this idea is kind of shunned by the magical community. But as some of you know from my previous videos and from my blog posts, I originally came into magic from a position of being completely atheistic and empirical. I went for many years not believing in anything, but life experience kind of slapped me in the face and said, well, no, there is more. You know, do a bit of research and grow the hell up. But even from, you know, I still have that kind of mindset of, well, how does everything work? I need to understand the workings of things. And from a scientific perspective, from someone who had interest in biochemistry and biophysics, this idea that our genetic code is altered by every experience that we have in life and every substance that we come into contact with, that our DNA is technically constantly shifting in minute ways that we'll never ever know about, because out of 3 billion you know, combinations within the DNA strand, it's probably only one change at a time over a protracted period of time, so it's barely detectable, if at all. But the idea that certain experiences can be encoded in a person's DNA, and then that information is passed on to their progeny as genetic memory, which has been demonstrated by science as well. We know that instinctual behaviours are passed on through genetic memory as well. Certain survival instincts and whatnot. But then couple that with this idea that you know, some people have a single genetic marker in their code that makes them susceptible to a particular illness, or they have another genetic marker which means they've got greater bone density, or, you know, greater muscle mass or something like that. What was his name? Was it Usain Bolt, I think, was a prime example. His musculature is unique. It's completely and utterly different to any other athlete, whether that's just through training or whether there's a genetic reason for that, whether that's something that's encoded in his genetics for his muscles to be that way, which makes him as good as he is. This, you know, you couple those two ideas together, and it seems feasible to me that some people are genetically predisposed to work more easily or more intuitively with magic. Now, as I've mentioned in previous posts, I see magic as a force that it permeates everything in the universe, be it the physical or the astral universe. It permeates everything, it animates everything. And therefore, by that logic, everyone and everything has the capacity or the potential to tap into that power and direct it, which is what magic is. It's tapping into a natural force and using it in accordance with your will to achieve something. So, yeah, I do still subscribe to that, but I do think that some people are just better at doing it. Call it like a natural talent. Some people have a talent for music, some people have a talent for art. It's something that they're not taught, they can just do it. I think it's the same with magic. And then on the flip side, there are some people who just cannot seem to wrap their head around it. They can't get a grasp of it, no matter how much information they're given, no matter how much they try to practice. They just can't seem to make magic work. They just can't seem to understand magic. And then even further, there are some people who just won't even acknowledge the possibility for magic. They won't acknowledge the possibility for spirits or deity or anything else. They just see everything as accidental and inanimate and meaningless, basically. So I'm coming up to 10 minutes. I'm going to speed through this pretty quickly. Okay, I'm going to look at this prefer silver to gold. Now, people say you prefer silver to gold because silver is the metal of the moon and witches work with the moon. And therefore, if you're a hereditary witch, or if you're descended from fae because they are lunar beings as well, then you'd be naturally drawn to silver. Whilst I understand that, what happens if you're descended from a line of witches who were sun worshippers? Surely then you would prefer gold to silver. So I don't see how that is, you know, evidence of you being a hereditary witch or not. a couple of others. Animals are drawn to you, as I said. Are they domesticated animals or are they wild animals? If a dog comes to you in the park and lets you fuss it, and the owner says, oh, they don't normally like strangers, that's not an indication that you have this magical magnetism or understanding for animals. It just means that that dog is comfortable with you because you're comfortable with it. However, if a squirrel comes down out of a tree when you're on a walk through the woods and just sits in your presence, that's unusual. If a bird comes and lands on you or near you and lets you feed it by hand, that is unusual. So again, whichever way you look at it, this whole draw to nature and this affinity with nature is an indication that you have magical ability, but not in all cases, and this is where people often get confused. Unusual sleep patterns, feel like you don't belong in the world or in society. That bugs the absolute crap out of me, because there are so many people I know who are so switched off, and they're so oblivious, not even oblivious, ignorant, willfully ignorant to the idea of magic, the idea of spirit, the idea of deity. They won't even touch it with a 20-foot barge pole. They laugh, they scoff, they throw hand gestures. And yet, they are some of the most discontented people I've ever met in my life. You don't need to be magical to be discontented with the world you live in. That's a product of modern society. In fact, it's a product of societal living in general. Human beings will always be dissatisfied with what they have, because we're all striving for more, something for striving for difference. So I'm going to basically brush all those aside and I've written out a list of 10 things which I think are clear indicators of you being inherently magic. Whether you're descended from fae, I think this idea starts in some Celtic mythology, the idea that some like fae folk bred with humans, and then their progeny had magical abilities, and they think that's the origin of magic in humans. And a lot of people subscribe to that, which is fine. I kind of like the idea, it's nice. But yeah, whether you're descended from fae or whether it's just a case of you have witches or magical practitioners like a few generations back and that information's carried forward in genetic memory, whichever, doesn't elevate you, doesn't make you better than any other magical practitioner out there. But I will say that there are some signs which would suggest that you are, or you do have, a genetic marker which makes you better at magic than the average person. So I'm just going to go through these quickly. You see, hear or feel spirits all through life, not just in childhood, because a lot of children perceive spirit when they're young, but then social conditioning and everything else kind of pulls them away from that. They're taught to not believe what they see and what they feel and what they hear, and that it's all just in their head. It may be, but the subconscious mind is a gateway between this world and the astral world anyway, so should we really discount an experience if it's just in someone's head? But yeah, if that persists through life into your teens and into your 20s or whatever, if you still get sounds or you catch glimpses of things or you get feelings that you can't explain, that could be that you have this natural ability to perceive spirit. Prophetic dreams, precognizance, or persistent deja vu. Now this one I think is quite good. Now prophetic dreams are kind of, you know, where you have a dream that you see someone in your dream that you haven't seen for many, many years, and then within a couple of days, bang, they show up out of the blue. Or you bump into them in a shopping centre or something like that. What are the odds? Statisticians would say that the odds are actually greater than we think, but again, from personal experience, it's unlikely. The chances are slim. So prophetic dreams, I think, precognizance. Persistent deja vu, to me, implies the idea that you've already seen ahead of time and you've seen a particular moment in time and remembered it. So then when your physical body catches up to what the astral body has seen, you already know what's going to happen, and you get that feeling of, oh wait, I've been here before. Because the astral body isn't bound by three-dimensional time and space. It can perceive things which have yet to come to pass, and that which has come before, even though we didn't have to have been there. Yeah. So that shows that you've got a powerful astral body, which is typical of people who practice magic or have magical ability, whether you realise it or not. Psychokinesis or telepathy. Now, when I was very young, I used to see myself from other people's points of view. I'd kind of get an image in my mind of me standing where I am, but from a different point in the room. And I'd look around and see a person watching me from the position that I'd seen myself in. If you get anything like that, that's a strong indication that you have psychic ability. And psychokinesis, just moving things without touching them. You may have these occasions when you go, did I just switch that tap on? I don't remember switching the tap on, but the tap is on. I don't remember touching it. Small children and wild animals. Now, I say small children like infants, because toddlers upwards, they just gravitate to people who look friendly and want to play. Babies, however, if they fixate on you and they seem to be drawn to something around you, that could be an indication that you have this strong aura that this open-minded and very perceptive child is picking up on. As I mentioned earlier, wild animals being drawn to you, not domestic ones, that doesn't count, but wild animals definitely. Witch marks. People talk about witch marks. Typically it's in palmistry. So you'll have the mounts, which relate to certain planets and things like that. And usually within these areas of the hand are tiny, minute patterns created by the lines in the skin. Some of them may be pentacles, some of them may be astrological symbols, such as the symbol for Mars, which I've got on my arm. Crosses. Numerous other symbols which are associated with the occult. Legend has it, if you have those marks in your palm, then it shows that you have it in your DNA, or your spirit is a magical spirit or something like that. I think all spirits are magical naturally, but it's just it's a particular legend. So witch marks, all of the magical people that I know, the most magical people that is, have similar types of marks in similar places on their hands, whereas other people whose palms I've looked at, they don't have them. And they're just kind of going, oh yeah, go on, read my palm, tell my future. It's not about telling the future. It's about telling you things about yourself that you don't know or won't acknowledge. That just shows that they don't know. And it's echoed in the fact that they lack the marks in their hands. In astrology as well, you can have witch marks in your astrology, which are basically just particular alignments which are particularly auspicious for magical people. So if you look at your natal chart, and there are squares or trines or full-on alignments, some of them can indicate that you are inherently a magical person. Dreams or memories, persistent dreams or memories of a different place or time. Now this kind of links into the prophetic dreams or deja vu. This idea that you are getting past life memories, and typically people who have magical ability and a strong soul or strong spirit can remember things from previous incarnations. So if you're having this, then again that could be an indicator that you're magic. Lucid dreaming, astral projection, or out-of-body experiences, similar thing. If you're in a dream and you suddenly realise you're in a dream and can kind of snap out of it and take control of things and influence the dream as you see fit, again, powerful mind, powerful spirit, that shows inherent magic. Or if you can project yourself out your body and look at yourself from the astral plane and see yourself, your physical body detached. Again, it's a fairly common ability actually. Most people don't even realise they have it. They just think it's weird dreams, but hey ho. Now, those are more in line with abilities that you might have. In terms of ways of thinking, if you've always believed that there's something more to the world, say for example, I was raised in a family that is full of teachers and scientists, so naturally logic would dictate that I'd have a similar worldview to them, which I did for a long time. But in the back of my mind I always thought, well, there's got to be more to this. It doesn't feel like there's just this world, it feels like there's a world behind the world. And this intuitive kind of draw to the unknown and seeking that could be an indication that you have knowledge of this already encoded within you, and that your soul's kind of urging you to seek that out. So that's definitely something to bear in mind. Fascination with death and the afterlife. Now, the way I see it, atheists, when faced with the idea of death, would just go, oh well, when you die, that's it. Your body stops working and you cease to exist. So they don't even think about an afterlife. And religious people, well, I say religious people, primarily the Abrahamic traditions, fear death and don't really want to think about it or talk about it because they are unsure about what comes after. Am I going to go to heaven? Am I going to go to hell? Am I in God's good books? Am I going to be stuck in purgatory? What's going to happen? And this idea of death frightens them, so they won't talk about it. People who have a fascination with death and the afterlife and actually want to know what other people think about the afterlife, not just mainstream religion but other traditions as well, again suggest they've got this pre-existing knowledge of actually what comes after. That is usually tied in with people who have a very strong spirit and magical ability or psychic ability, especially if you perceive spirits. That's one of the main things if those two are linked. And finally, if you're extra sensitive to electromagnetic fields, certain pulses or sound frequencies, if you feel adversely affected by those things, for example, if you drive past an electricity pylon and you feel like there's this weight bearing down on you, you feel a bit nauseous, that's because your body's having this really adverse reaction to the EMF that it's emitting. People who don't have magical ability typically aren't bothered by this, whereas magical people are usually very sensitive to it. And I think that's just because they've got this connection, a deeper connection to the energy around them, the energy of nature, the energy of the spirits around them and things like that. And so they perceive this highly oppressive field of energy much more keenly than most people. So if you get things like that, that could again be an indication that you are inherently magic. Now, those are my 10 signs. Whether you agree with them or not, if you want to put in the comments below, that would be great. If you disagree with this idea of in being inherently magic or descended from Fae or whatever, by all means, discussion is open, so long as it stays respectful, naturally. I'm not saying it for the sake of bigging anyone up, because as I say, it shouldn't big anybody up. It just means that there are some people who have a natural talent for it and some who don't, and that's the same for pretty much any art or craft. We shouldn't be bragging about it, and no one should be putting anyone else down just because they don't have as much of a natural ability for it as they do. Now I think because our developed Western world seems to be run by people who don't have these genetic predispositions towards magic and spirituality and the understanding of the other worlds, they kind of go through life and they, without regard for the consequences of their thoughts and actions, whereas magical people seem to have this intuitive understanding of their thoughts, even just their thoughts affecting the reality around them, and therefore they're a lot more careful with what they say, what they do, and what they think. Generally, magical people, not all, because there are some who still have blatant disregard for other people, such as Aleister Crowley. But I think part of the problem that our world faces, especially with regards to the natural world being destroyed, is because it's being run by non-magic people. And again, this might be incendiary for some people. This may trigger some people. This might actually annoy some people. But I feel as though the magical community, we try to do things that benefit the natural world. Hence why this year's YouTube Pagan Challenge is about what we can do to help nature and to help save the world as a magical community. That's what we focus on. That's what we're drawn to, because we understand we're part of the natural world. We're not above it. We're not beyond it. We're not the masters of the natural world. We're custodians of it. It's our job to look after it and preserve it, not to destroy it and just rape it for our own greedy drive to consume. And this ideological war, I think, is just a manifestation of a much deeper conflict between those who are of magical inclination, be it genetic or otherwise, and those who aren't, those of a mundane and materialistic predisposition. I mean, I refer to non-magic people as muggles, literally, because it's quippy, it's kind of light-hearted, but it kind of, it just sums them up perfectly, muggles. It even sounds like someone who's a little bit, you know, dull-minded and ploddy. I do feel as though there is a conflict that's probably been raging for a long time between the magical community and the non-magical community, the muggle community. And I think it's time for, you know, magical people to come together and work together and put aside the petty aesthetic differences between their practices, and start focusing on the higher goals. We need to wake the muggles up. We need to give the muggles a smack upside the head and say, pull your shit together, otherwise we're all done for. And if they're not going to listen, we need to force them to listen, by hook or by crook. And they are fighting us with fire. They have done for centuries. They burnt us at the stake. And now they're burning the natural world. And if they're going to fight with fire, we need to fight fire with fire. I'm not advocating violence. You know what I mean? But I'm saying that we need to be a little bit more assertive with the way that we, you know, go forward, especially, you know, with us on the brink of a global sort of environmental collapse. So, if any of the 10 signs that I've listed resonate with you, I mean, you wouldn't be on this channel if you weren't already interested and weren't already looking into it, but look deeper. And really try to connect with it. Try to go as deep as you can and find that power that's buried within you, because it's a cosmic power. It's not just restricted to the individual. What you think and what you say echoes out into the universe and will eventually rebound. It will echo back on you, and you'll see your thoughts and your words and your actions made manifest in the physical world. So if we pull together and keep our thoughts and our words and our actions focused on the greater good, and waking the muggles up and getting them on the straight and narrow and bringing them back into harmony with the world that we live in, it will happen eventually. So I'm going to leave it there for now. I'm going to do another entry for the YouTube Pagan Challenge anyway, pretty shortly anyway. So keep an eye out for that. Thanks for watching this video, and until my next one, I wish you all a very good day or night, wherever you are in the world, and may your gods go with you. Bye for now.